So I wanted to do something that would give equal access to education to everybody, regardless of whether they had money. Now, education is very general. So, we were wondering what in education do we do? Should we try to teach math? Should we try to teach, any kind of subject? And we actually decided we were going to start with teaching languages. And in particular, it's because of English. Knowledge of English. Well, in my case, I'm not a native English speaker, and having learned English completely changed my life. This was true with my co-founder, Severin, who's also not a native English speaker. And we knew that in most countries in the world, if you know English, you can immediately double your income potential. So we decided we were going to do something that would teach English, but if we're going to teach English, may as well teach other languages. So what we decided we were going to do is we're going to do something that would teach languages, but that would give equal access to language education to everybody. So what that translated to, it was basically a free way to learn languages. So, we started working on it, and then we launched this thing called Duolingo about 8 years ago. And we were very fortunate that, when we launched it, it started growing a lot. There's many reasons why it started growing a lot when we launched it. One was because we launched exactly when apps started growing, which was in 2012, and Duolingo was an app. It also, since it was free, a lot of people started downloading it. And the other reason is it was fun. We realized early on that the hardest thing about learning something by yourself, in particular learning a language by yourself, is keeping yourself motivated. So we decided we were going to make Duolingo feel as much like a game as possible. So because of that, Duolingo started growing a lot. And then, by now, and since then, it became the world's #1 language learning app. And it's not just in that, it also became the most downloaded app in the education category. So of all education apps for the last 8 years in a row, Duolingo has been the most downloaded app in the education category. And there's a lot of staggering numbers. I mean, for example, there are more people learning languages on Duolingo today in the United States than there are people learning languages in the whole US public school system. And there's a lot of kind of similar numbers. We have a ton of users. By now, when we started, we only taught English and Spanish, and then we started adding more and more languages. By now, we teach a ton of languages. There's just a ton of languages that we teach. We teach basically every large language that you've heard of. French, Spanish, German, Chinese, Hindi, etc. We also teach some smaller languages. For example, we teach Irish. We teach High Valyrian from Game of Thrones. We teach Klingon from Star Trek. We teach Esperanto. Fun fact, more people are learning High Valyrian than there are people learning Vietnamese on Duolingo. I don't know what that says about the world, but it just happens to be the case. So we teach a lot of languages, and actually some of these smaller languages, it's very interesting. For example, Irish, there are 94,000 native Irish speakers. But we have so many users on Duolingo that there are actually over 1 million people learning Irish on Duolingo. So we actually have the chance of multiplying the number of Irish speakers by a factor of 10, which is why we get lobbied a lot for adding, all kinds of languages. Unfortunately, there are 6,000 total languages, so it's going to take us a while to add them all. We probably will never get there the whole way, but we're adding them, as fast as we can. Also, unfortunately, adding a language is not cheap. So it's not like it's completely free to add a language. So this is why we just can't add thousands of them at a time. But we've been adding all these languages, and now a lot of people ask why is it that Duolingo became so popular? And like I said, probably the biggest reason is that we spent a lot of effort trying to make Duolingo fun. So this is what Duolingo looks like in the main. Whenever you're learning. Basically the way learning happens on Duolingo is that we split up the whole language into multiple units that we call skills. And at the beginning, only one skill is unlocked. And then you have to complete that skill to unlock the next row of skills. Then whenever you complete that row, you unlock the next row, etc. So there's this unlocking mechanism that is pretty fun. And then what completing a skill means is basically doing these lessons, which consist of these mini exercises. So on Duolingo, most of the learning you don't have to read or anything, or like read a lot of grammar. Basically, you're doing very active stuff. For example, you may get an exercise where you have to translate something like this, or you may get an exercise where you have to say something to the app, and the app tells you whether you said it correctly or not, or an exercise where you have to pick the right image, to practice vocabulary. And the way a lesson works is that you start. There's this progress bar at the top. And at the beginning, the progress bar is empty. And whenever you get an exercise right, it fills up a little bit. If you get an exercise wrong, it decreases. So basically, you're going up and down until you fill up the entire bar. You finish the lesson, and then that's, you get points for having finished the lesson. We've added a lot of gamification things in there. For example, whenever you get the exercise right, that little character there, which by the way has a name. We have names for all our little characters. That little character there does a little dance for you having gotten the exercise right. So there's a lot of basically delightful moments that make you really want to keep using the app. Another thing that people may not know is even though the app looks kind of really gamified and a lot like a game, there's actually a lot of sophistication in the background to try to keep you as engaged and as possible, and also to try to get you to learn as much as possible. So whenever you start a lesson on Duolingo, we actually try to figure out what exercises to give you, and we base that decision on everything that you've done in the past. So we actually know all the exercises you've done on Duolingo, every time you got something right, every time you got something wrong, and then we use all of that to give you lessons of the appropriate difficulty to keep you as engaged as possible. Also, if you're getting a lot of things right, we start giving you harder and harder exercises. If you're getting a lot of things wrong, we start giving you easier and easier exercises. So basically, it adapts to how much you know of the language, and that's something that we have found really keeps people pretty engaged. One thing that I'm also really excited about. Is that we're in a unique position with Duolingo that we can actually literally watch millions of people learn a language. And because of that, we can use big data to improve how we teach. So for example, this is just a toy example, but if we want to know when we're teaching a given language, maybe we're teaching German, and we want to know whether we should teach you a given grammatical case before another one or the other way around, we actually can do a test with our own users. So for example, for the next 50,000 people that sign up, to half of them at random, we teach them maybe, adjectives before plurals. And to the other half, we teach them plurals before adjectives. So we just see which way is better. And then afterwards, and measure which ones, do the people that learn adjectives before plurals, are they learning better, or the other way around? And then we can once and for all figure out whether it's better, at least for our own users, to teach adjectives before plurals or plurals before adjectives. So we do this type of experiment all the time with our own users, which is why Duolingo is just getting better and better. So literally every week, Duolingo is a tiny bit better, because we're trying to figure out what is the best way to teach using the data from our own users. So that's a pretty, I'm very excited by this, because this is something that 20 years ago was just not possible. We couldn't just watch millions of people learn at the same time. So this is something that we're very excited about, and because of that, Duolingo has actually gotten pretty good at teaching. So for example, we just our research team just found, so the Duolingo course is split up into multiple checkpoints. Our research team just found out that users who start with no prior proficiency in the language, so basically don't know the language at all, and get to a spot in the Duolingo course called checkpoint 5, they learn the equivalent of 4 university semesters of the language. But what's most amazing is that they learn that in half the time. So this is pretty impressive. I'm very happy with it, and it has a lot to do with the fact that we've really been improving Duolingo kind of every week, just making it a little better. So we're very happy with this. The other thing that I want to talk about is it's maybe a less known project that we have at Duolingo, but I'm also particularly excited about it. So we have the main Duolingo app. But we, as of the last maybe 5 years ago, we started working on this thing called the Duolingo English test. And we started this project because a lot of our users, about 5 years ago, were emailing us, telling us, hey, thank you for teaching me English. I used to not be able to afford learning English, but now I can learn English, but I have a problem now, and it is that I need a certificate that proves that I know English. There's many reasons why people may need a certificate. For example, if you are trying to get a job, and they ask you, do you know English? They ask for a certificate. And so a lot of people were emailing us. And so we decided to look into this. And what we found was pretty crazy. So it turns out that about $5 billion a year are spent by people certifying that they know English. There's many reasons why you may need to do that. For example, if you apply to a US university, I am sure many of you had to go through this. If you apply to a US university from a non-English speaking country, you have to take a standardized test that proves that you know English. For example, there's the TOEFL or there's the IELTS. But there's many other reasons. For example, if you are trying to get a work visa in the UK, you also have to take a standardized test that proves that you know English. So in all, about $5 billion are spent by people proving that they know English. Mostly is to be standardized tests. And all these tests are pretty similar. They cost about $250. You have to go to a physical testing center to take the test. And so, you know, because you have to go to a physical testing center, you have to make an appointment a few weeks in advance. So the whole process is pretty annoying. It's, you know, it's $250. You have to go somewhere and it takes several weeks. But it's even worse because most of the people that are taking these tests are actually in developing countries. And there, that's a whole different thing. $250 is a month's salary. The testing centers, they're not in every city. So you may have to travel. So we thought this was just ridiculous and that there should be a better way to do this. So we decided that we were going to make our own test, and our own test was going to be fully online. So as opposed to having to go to a testing center, you can take a test from your own computer, from your own home. And instead of it costing $250, I don't know why it needs to cost $250. We decided our test was going to cost only $50. So we decided to launch our own test, and it was online. And now, if we are going to do that, there's a few things you have to do. First, you have to create a test that accurately measures whether people know English. So we did that. Next, you have to prevent cheating. So the main reason why people have to go to a testing center to take one of these standardized tests is to make sure that they are not cheating. For example, that they are who they say they are, that they didn't bring help with them, etc. The way we prevent cheating is we actually turn on the front-facing camera of the computer, and then we have a real human and some artificial intelligence actually watch the person taking the test to make sure that they are A, who they say they are, and B, that they're not getting any help. So we had to solve that problem. And then the last problem we had to solve is we had to get universities, not just universities, organizations worldwide to accept the results of our test. And so we've been working on that for the last 5 years. That's been the hardest problem to solve. And fortunately, we've made a ton of progress. By now, there are about 2,500 different university programs that accept our test as proof of English proficiency. Many of them are here in the United States. This is an interesting fact. 17 of the top 20 US universities, according to US News and World Report, accept the Duolingo English test as equivalent to, for example, the TOEFL and the IELTS. So now when you apply to a US university, it is, you know, extremely likely that that university will accept the Duolingo English test. And you can do it for just $50 as opposed to $250. So we're very happy with this. The test, you know, the test is also much shorter because it's computer adaptive. So as opposed to, I see that Martin's smiling because that was on the screen here is Martin's boss, I guess. So the test is computer adaptive. So as opposed to taking 4 hours, it only takes 30 minutes because basically it's one of those tests that if you're getting a lot of things that are right, it just gives you harder and harder and harder things. And if you're getting a lot of things that are wrong, it just gives you kind of easier and easier and easier things. So it's adaptive and it only takes 30 minutes. So that's the test. And that's kind of all I had prepared. You know, I love hackathons. I'm happy that you guys are doing all of this. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about some of the things we're working on. And some things that I'm very proud of. One last thing that I did want to say that I forgot to say about Duolingo is what makes me the proudest about Duolingo itself is that it is really used by the whole spectrum of society. So at some point about 3 or so years ago, maybe 4 years ago, I found out that Duolingo was used by Syrian refugees all across Europe to learn the native language of the country. So as an interesting thing, in Sweden, the most learned language on Duolingo is actually Swedish. And it is because of refugees that have moved that are basically learning Swedish to be able to live their lives. So refugees use Duolingo, which is great. But at the same time, for example, Bill Gates uses Duolingo. And that to me is what makes me the proudest. The fact that the same system is used by the whole spectrum of society, from Syrian refugees who have very little to their name, to one of the richest people in the world, that just means that more money cannot buy you a better education. And that's, that's the thing that we wanted to accomplish with Duolingo. So that's it. I will stop sharing. Let's see, let me get out of here and stop sharing. I stopped sharing, and I don't know if there are any questions. I wanted to tell you about this, and yes, hello.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that great presentation. So if anyone has any questions, they can type it into the event Q&A.
Yeah. Hello, sir. This is Utkarsh from India.
Hi.
Hi, sir. Sir, I want to know, like, what was the toughest period? Like, you have started your Duolingo app and reached to the great heights. Like, it's right now working in the different countries. So, what was, according to you, was the toughest period for Duolingo, and how you overcome with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's so it sounds in retrospect easy, but all of it has been difficult. Probably the toughest was at the beginning, getting started. At the very beginning, we did not know what we wanted to build, and so we spent maybe 6 to 9 months just going around in circles trying to figure out what we wanted to build and how we wanted to build it. We did a lot of really dumb things back then. I mean, I remember, while we were all software engineers, we spent a lot of time making a really, really awesome database for it and configuring it and everything. And this was not the biggest problem we needed to solve. We needed to make something that was actually good at teaching languages, but we were very proud of a very fast database thing that we had done that made no sense. So I'd say the beginning was the hardest, but, throughout the whole time, I mean, the thing with Duolingo is it's, every day you just have to work very hard to make it 1% better. So it's been a lot of work the whole time.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So my question is, how has machine learning impacted how Duolingo has been good at teaching languages?
That's a great question. We have maybe about 20 people with machine learning PhDs or AI PhDs working at Duolingo. And so we've done a number of things. One of them is that we have this student model. So we basically have this the system that for every exercise and that every user does, we record it. And so we know for every user kind of what they know. And we use that a lot to make decisions about what exercises to give you next. And so that's a whole machine learning system. That's one place. Another place that we use it for is for the Duolingo English test. We use machine learning to pick the test items. We have about, I don't know, 500,000 test items. They were all categorized with machine learning about how, roughly how difficult they are. And so that's another place where we've used it. Here's another one that's actually very interesting. With, one of the important things with Duolingo is the notifications. We send you a notification to remind you to practice every day. The time at which we send the notification and what we say in the notification have all been tuned with machine learning, and we got great gains from that. It turns out it really matters when we send you that notification and what we say there. So that's another place where we've used machine learning.
Thank you.
I think Linda had her hand up for a while, so if you want to ask your...
So I was actually also going to ask about how AI is making education more adaptive. I think you just answered that question.
Yeah.
So I had a question. I was wondering how you got your first set of customers from developing an app and getting your actual set of customers.
Yeah, we were very lucky. It turned out that even right before we launched, because before this, I had worked on this other company called reCAPTCHA, which was pretty popular. I gave a TED Talk. And in the TED Talk, towards the end, I talked a little bit about Duolingo. And we hadn't launched yet, but we had a website that just said, hey, we haven't launched Duolingo, but if you want to, just leave us your email address here, and then we'll let you know. And because of the TED Talk, we got about 1 million email addresses in this website. And so by the time we launched, we basically sent an email blast to these million people, and that's basically our first set of customers. So that was luck. That was pure luck. But yeah, that's what happened.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, so I'm interested in like what sort of plans they have for the future, and so like maybe, for instance, making features for more advanced language learners.
Yes.
And also like maybe what you might do specifically with machine learning, like for instance, auto-generating like more complex sentences that really like adapt even more to the user's knowledge.
Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, so our plans for the future. So we're definitely working on teaching to more advanced levels. Right now, you know, like I said in my talk, right now Duolingo is about as good as you know, the first few semesters, you know, the first 4 semesters of a university, you know, college courses. So that's great. We're not yet as good as a one-on-one human tutor, and I would like to get there. That's a pure AI problem. Like I would like to have Duolingo be as good as a human one-on-one tutor. You know, that's not going to happen in the next 6 months. That's going to take a while. But that's something that we're working on to try to make it just as effective as a human tutor. So that's one thing that we're working on. Another thing is we're actually starting to teach other things. We just recently released an app called Duolingo ABC, which just teaches you how to read in your native language. So this is not for learning foreign languages. This is just for your native language. So this is a children's app. And it's fully free, and the idea is just to teach you how to read. I personally think, you know, it is ridiculous that the year 2020, that in the year 2020, it's about 750 million adults that don't know how to read and write. We should be able to do better. So we're starting to work on that. When we may work on teaching other subjects too. So that's something we're starting to do.
Hi, Luis. I'd be curious to hear about what impact Duolingo has had in your home country of Guatemala.
Great question. Yeah, it's actually very popular there. A lot of people are using it to learn English. So that's been great to see. I mean, yes, it's been great. I mean, and I started Duolingo kind of thinking about Guatemala, so I'm very happy that it's there and being used quite a bit.
We have a question on Discord that a lot of people have upvoted. It's can you talk about how Duolingo funds all of its endeavors, since it runs on the idea that learning should be free?
Yes, so we do make money, and we make quite a bit of money actually. But here's the basic idea. You know, we don't want to charge for learning. We don't want to do that. So most things where you learn, you have to pay for the actual education. We don't want to do that. So the way we decided to make money was actually at the end of a lesson, you get a small kind of banner ad. It's not like a long video ad or anything. It's just an ad. It turns out we have enough users that actually gives us tens of millions of dollars. And then because we have that ad, we also have a subscription that allows you to turn off the ads. And then it turns out that the subscription actually gives us more money than the ads. So about 3% of our users pay us. And that 3% gives us, you know, about 80% of our revenue. This year we will make something like $200 million, mostly from the subscription of people turning off the ads. So that's what we make money. But again, 97% of our users are using Duolingo entirely for free, and you know, have never paid us. Every now and then they do have to, you know, look at an ad, but that's it.
Awesome. We have another question, which is, what languages are you currently learning on Duolingo?
Okay, so I actually got pretty advanced in Portuguese. So I learned Portuguese and I got pretty good at it. I've stopped because at this point I'm mainly just watching Netflix shows in Portuguese. 3%, by the way, is a good Netflix show in Portuguese if you want to watch. I'm now in French. I'm getting better in French, and I very recently started. See, we have a Japanese course, which I don't think is particularly good, but we are making it significantly better. And so I very recently started and Japanese, it's not like I know any Japanese. I'm basically started learning the characters for Japanese with our new method of teaching, which has not been released to the public. But basically, I've been, for the last month or so, I've been trying to learn the Japanese characters. Turns out there's just a lot of them. So I've been doing that.
Sweet, awesome. I think it's 10:30, so we should probably wrap this up. But so yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in to today's keynote, and thank you so much, Luis, for giving a great.
Thank you for doing this. Thank you, Martin, for organizing, and good luck, everybody. And bye.
Awesome, thank you.